Welcome my fellow gamers to another showcase of dozens of strategy games from both indie and AAA developers for the second part of 2021. Previously I showed you 45 games like these, and with the year now ending, I want to showcase to you what else was good, great and pure gem in the year behind us. Be it tactical RPG, fast-paced RTS, complex turn-based 4X or enjoyable simulation management game. My name is Peter and I will give you a short rundown on each of these games, but for a more comprehensive individual overviews, use the links which are up here and in the description, where you will also find the previous list I mentioned. King's Bounty 2 is a sequel, but also a reimagining of how a turn-based RPG strategy game is played. Sure enough, you have the standard hex-based combat with leaders and units, but the world exploration looks and plays like a third-person cinematic RPG. There are all sorts of characters, monsters, storyline, plots, loot, and a huge world of Antara to explore. The environment and landscape in battles are far more pronounced and have far more tactical meaning in battles, so keep an open mind and plan in 3D. Epic Fantasy Battle Simulator is a whole other kind of strategy game because what it lacks in story exploration and campaign, it makes up for in sheer numbers. Up to and above 100,000 units on the screen, and those units have actual working combat systems like light and heavy attack, parry and blocking. There are 4 different factions with large variety of units and weapons, everything from knights in shining armor to demons with lava for their skin. There is workshop support for you to add your own units and play with them in third person. Timberborn is advertised as a lumberpunk city building game, and if you're wondering why, it is because you control a village of beavers as they blow up landscape, build vertical architecture, dams to control river water, and all sorts of sophisticated gizmos. You can go with 2 styles of play because there are 2 factions to choose from, the nature-friendly Folktales and the industrious Iron Teeth. Yes, metal is also building material. You have to satisfy their needs and watch out for deadly droughts. Shelter 2 is a survival management simulator set in a post-apocalyptic wasteland. As a leader of these tattered remains of human race, you must build up your faction while maintaining resources and tackling natural and human threats like starvation, dehydration, radiation poisoning, and enemy raids. You can send expeditions in vehicles or on foot to trade and make friends, while you have to fight against enemies in turn-based combat. Survivors have personalities, traits, desires, and a huge list of skills to acquire. Dice Legacy is this strange but yet cool survival city builder set in a place no other game besides Halo has ever been, a ring world. Dice rolling is the core mechanic while you gather resources, construct buildings, and expand the borders of your realm. Your enemies are the winter and others. For those you prepare by recruiting new subjects, researching new technologies, and making mighty constructs. Your population starts out as humble peasants, but they advance and become citizens, soldiers, priests, and merchants. Encased is subtitled a sci-fi post-apocalyptic RPG, and with good reason. The game world is an enormous artifact called the Dome, located in a remote desert. You start with one of 5 divisions of the Kronos Corporation, fight enemies, explore many maps, level up your character, and join a faction. Each quest can be completed differently depending on your stats and choices, which all lead to different endings. There is even a robotic armor for you to use, besides lots of weapons, armor, and food to craft. Citystate II is a lone developer's fully realized idea about a game which does not simulate each citizen, but focuses on the deeper and more complex macroeconomic system that affects an entire country, which the player can make up from 64 interconnected cities. 60 different policies with 4 settings can be enacted at the national level while sharing power production, jobs and bonuses from governmental buildings and airports. There are 3 social classes and 4 economic sectors. Oh, and you can fly helicopters. Age of Darkness Final Stand is a modern, darker spin on the survival RTS genre set in a dark fantasy kingdom consumed by a deadly fog full of monsters. While the sun is up, players will construct buildings, gather resources, and recruit an army led by heroes. It is the only safe time for scouting the procedurally generated map to pick off enemies. But once the sun sets, players have to survive enemy swarms numbering in the thousands. You are expected to learn through repeated failures, refine your build orders, tactics, and army compositions. InfraSpace is an indie city builder set on an alien planet and requires quite a lot of traffic management skills from its would-be mayors. It features production chains starting at resource extracting and ending with consumer products for your astronauts/colonists. These are scientists, engineers, and other professionals which have different needs and wants. You can choose to ignore the end goal of building a wormhole portal and just build freely in the infinite mode if that is more your style of city building. The Riftbreaker is a mixed bag of genres and gameplay elements. It's an RTS survival builder in which you control a mecha suit capable of dimensional travel in a top-down view like a hack-and-slash RPG game. You will build your bases on multiple continents, collect samples, and research new tech to survive against waves of alien fauna. Your task is to construct a two-way rift back to Earth that requires enormous amounts of energy, because of which you will need to build a complex chain of mines, refineries, and power plants. Mongrels is a World War II game, but it's not an FPS or RTS. It's the rare isometric real-time tactics game we get to play once in a blue moon. Each character has their own personality, background, and skills to use in the interactive environments, open to many tactical options, which also adds a lot of replayability. There is even an online cooperative multiplayer for two players to solve combat situations together. Go in silently or boom, it's up to you. Gladiator Guild Manager is a fantasy version of arena combat where you manage all sorts of monsters and creatures in order to build them up into a winning gladiator team. Once you hire your gladiators, it is up to you to figure out the best combat tactics and gladiator combos. You can also equip them with items, develop their skills and abilities. If things aren't working out, you can find new gladiators and items at the dynamic market, learn their strengths and weaknesses, and try again to conquer the arena. Stolen Realm is a turn-based strategy RPG which features a simultaneous team turn system on a hex-based grid with a dungeon-crawling looter element set in a fantasy world shattered into rifts. You can lead a party of up to 6 champions, which does not have to fit the normal RPG class system. You want a spell-slinging assassin? Got it. A shadow-infused knight? Sure, why not? There are even 10 separate skill trees to climb and mix. The game features hilarious ragdoll effects, traps, fishing, gathering, as well as castle building. Spheres Flying Cities is a sci-fi city builder which combines strategy, simulation, and survival elements in a world where the Earth's moon shatters and its debris pummel Earth into oblivion. Humanity only survives thanks to an anti-gravity technology and cities enveloped in deflector shields. You are the commander tasked with keeping it afloat and maintaining the fragile ecosystem. You can build inside of it, research new technologies, utilize drones, and search for stranded survivors around the broken globe. Discipleless Liberation is the newest addition to a 20-year-old franchise of dark fantasy strategy RPG with turn-based combat and great storytelling. This one spans 3 acts with more than 270 quests and 5 unique endings. The combat takes place on a grid of hexagonal tiles. There are 50 might and magic units to recruit, 4 classes of heroes to choose from, and a huge home base to construct. There is the human empire filled with religious extremes, an undead force led by a mad queen, and everything in between. Delphyq is a real-time strategy and tactics game in a sci-fi setting where you lead a combat team of operatives in a campaign against a tyrannical corporate structure, The Balance. There is a tactical pause option as well as a robust waypoint, cover, and command system allowing you to perform military maneuvers with heavily armed combat specialists. The game's AI functions in conjunction with its environment and attempts to execute similar tactics against you. There is also a permanent death mode to challenge yourself in. Against the Storm is a roguelike city builder set in a fantasy world engulfed in a never-ending rain. Your mission is to build the Smoldering City, a place where the population will weather the worst of the Blightstorm. The population are beavers, lizards, and humans, all coexisting in one kingdom. You will build many outposts, collect resources, explore forest glades, and set up production chains across the world map. There are different biomes, random perks, building blueprint drafting, and a number of other gameplay mechanics which will increase replayability. Spire of Sorcery is a game about helping mages survive in an inhospitable land while being hunted by kingsmen and exploited for their power. You will enjoy exploring a large map, spellcasting and alchemy while studying different paths of magic. On your journey you will find new disciples and fight many monsters. While managing your party, consider the mood and personal traits of its members as you resolve mini stories that pose moral choices. Age of Empires 4 needs little introduction as one of the longest running RTS franchises. In this one we get to play with 8 diverse civilizations in 4 distinct campaigns with 35 missions that span across 500 years of history, from the Dark Age up to the Renaissance. Multiplayer battles of up to 8 players are supported in both PvP and PvE modes, as well as custom user-generated content. There are a number of new features in this one, like fighting on top of walls, stealth, ambushes, extended naval gameplay, and planned tournaments. Darkest Dungeon 2 is a sequel, but also a reimagining of the original game with a fresh setting, new characters, skills, and enemies. The maps are no longer dungeons, there is a whole new metagame, and the combat is getting a large rework. You will be walking out into the big bad world of monsters and bosses in this one with an updated cast of heroes like the Runaway, a self-reliant nomad which has built-in survivability skills. More info is incoming, and this release is just the early access version. Jurassic World Evolution 2 is a sequel which aims to expand on every aspect of the previous game in this dinosaur park manager. It has a new narrative campaign, extended construction and customization options, deeper management tools and creative options. It brings to life more than 75 prehistoric species including flying and marine reptiles which all seek territory, fight and interact with each other in staggering realism. It's based on all 5 movies and lets you play with chaos theory while rescuing and bioengineering dinosaurs. Tourney is a medieval tournament simulator with knights who engage in jousts, sword fighting and archery contests with an audience made up of nobles and peasants who they entertain. The player makes unique event areas for these fights and also constructs buildings such as apothecaries, blacksmiths, ale wagons and hog roasts to make money from visitors. You have to prevent knights from getting killed, develop them with training and buy them better gear and potions. There are 13 available houses and 4 impressive legendary locations like Avalon or Atlantis. Punk Wars is a classic turn-based 4X strategy in a post-apocalyptic diesel punk setting. Each of the 4 playable corporations are unique in some way and represent the last of the human race. Choosing one, you start rebuilding the world by growing your population, finding water and extracting other vital resources. Research also must be done and infrastructure rebuilt before wars of conquest can be started, in which your units will engage in fierce battles and level up as they gain experience. There are also wasteland nomad tribes and random events to spice up the gameplay. Tavern Master is a small-scale management game in which you are the main proprietor of your own medieval tavern. You start with a very small room, a couple of benches and tables, and build your way up to a huge successful tavern with a kitchen, rooms for guests, and a group of loyal staff. You are expected to optimize the seating arrangement, upgrade and expand rooms to attract new patrons, employ efficient staff, and keep your customers happy. Later expand with a hotel and even a medieval food delivery service. Kainga is a rare breed of roguelike city builders set in a tribal world populated by strange animals which can be domesticated as village helpers or beasts of war. Those wars can cost you your entire playthrough if you lose your leader called a Tinker. To build your village, you gather resources and construct huts while also celebrating festivals which grant you unique bonuses and rescuing additional Tinkers from enemy tribes. Your village's culture and look is heavily dependent on the environment, altitude and climate, requiring a different approach each time. King Under the Mountain is a simulation-based settlement building game set in a fantasy world where you grow a humble colony to the level of a kingdom. There is a day and night cycle, rainfall, plants grow during spring and wither in winter on procedurally generated maps designed to give nature a more unique look through various graphical tricks. Factions are dwarves, humans and orcs who come into conflict. The game is designed as mod-friendly and you can dig deep into mountains to create a large mining colony but also other kinds of settlements. Alien Marauder is an RTS with survival elements in which you lead and defend the mining expedition to an alien world full of hostile wildlife in 2 different game modes, survival and defense mode. Buildings are upgradable, all to help you mount the strongest possible defense with walls, turrets and all sorts of weapons and units against never-ending waves of alien life forms. Each of the 4 heroes can be leveled up and have 3 types of skills. There is a pause option which lets you take a breath and think hard on your next move. Exodus Borealis is a hybrid between city building and tower defense where you protect a colony against demon hordes. It leaves early access after dozens of patches and new content. Here you not only design your settlement but also manage colonists' jobs, research new tech, get resources and set up defenses and labyrinths. The 6 handcrafted islands on which you can play are rich in elemental gems and those are used to apply unique buffs to nearby towers. But because opposite elements nullify each other, this requires careful and strategic planning. Wartales lets you experience the mercenary's life during the medieval ages in this open-world party turn-based combat RPG. It offers a big world to explore and find quests and wealth for your companions who have numerous unique specializations, skill sets and weapon preferences. You can have many different character builds which will come in handy when fighting wild animals or bandits, collecting bounties, defending the weak and liberating the oppressed. There is also gear customization, gathering materials, crafting and developing your own camp. Lance Island is a top-down survival builder where you lead a solitary character in his struggle to build a life for himself on a dangerous island. He needs a home, crops to grow food, but also weapons to deal with monsters who live under his feet. There is a unique modular building system which lets you easily expand or change your home and bring lots of improvements to it. There are a few townsfolk to interact with, but there are many creatures who you can cut, smack and slam with your crafted weapons or run away when you are in over your head. Magna Graecia is a strategic builder and puzzle game inspired by dwarf romantic and set in the ancient Greek times of olives and grapes. These are your main resources, and by placing buildings strategically, adding up a adjacency bonuses and leveling them up, you will gain more and more of them as you develop and design your own Greek farming village. But it is a long road to it from a lone house and empty hexagonal tiles. Each new tile is filled in from a pool of randomly generated buildings and resources like crop fields, wineries, forests and more. Mechajammer is a tactical cyberpunk simultaneous turn-based RPG whose storyline takes place on a human colony in space. You get to freely roam its streets, recruit a party of mercenaries, bribe enemies and earn trust through completing missions to get off this planet, its killer jungles and the occult syndicate web. Both stealthy and gun-blazing approaches are viable due to the deep and fully customizable character creation. You must choose your path wisely as your story options will shift after each choice. Noble Fates is a fantasy kingdom simulation where you are a demigod who helps the villagers to build their castles and kingdoms from above, but also take direct control of them and fight enemies in third person. These are waves of monsters coming from demonic breaches, and the local mage is your greatest defense. There is a nobility class, neighbors, visitors to trade with, and acquire items to maximize your population's skills. Characters have very complex stats in the form of memories, which lead to many new situations and storylines. So with these strategy games, we end 2021, but to see everything that awaits you in 2022, use the videos shown on these cards and in the description below. I want to thank you for watching and invite you to join my channel to get notified when I post more videos about games from our favorite genre.